I don't know if you're familiar with Martin Rees, the water sommelier. He was on Conan. He's been on that Hulu documentary with Zac Efron about water. He is a water sommelier. He's big on TikTok. And by that description, you might think that this person stands for everything that I hate in the world, making a basic life necessity into a luxury. But he had really charmed the pants out of me when I saw him on somebody else's podcast. He has a lot in common with my values. He doesn't use the word best. He hates saying best. There is no best water. He has a very simple value system. Like, there's water for hydration, and then there's water to enjoy. Let's see, what else? He basically has a very easy to follow metric for what he's looking for. He just wants spring water that's sourced from an actual spring instead of, boiled tap water or distilled municipal water. And I think it's fair to sort of hate on his whole thing. But for me, I don't at all. And so I actually bought one of his water tasting boxes. I think it's about $75. And you sign up, and he sends you a box of 6 different waters: 3 sparkling, 3 stilled, low, medium, and high TDS, total dissolved solids. When I bought the box, I ended up waiting a long time for it to come. And he said, well, there was a huge demand since my podcast appearance, and 300 people ordered a box. Whereas usually this is something that he doesn't promote. He doesn't encourage people to. Almost all of the money goes towards shipping because it's relatively inexpensive product. It's just water shipped in a box, but it's very fragile. And he says, by no means do I want this to be like my thing that I push out to people. But it took a long time. And I ended up getting a little letter that says, I'm so excited for you to receive your own water tasting box, blah, blah, blah. Essentially, it took so long for them to receive enough of all of the waters that they wanted to ship out that they invited everybody for a virtual water tasting class online over Zoom.
And this exactly happened to me. We didn't have enough waters to send over, and we didn't have enough boxes to send over.
So I showed up not really knowing what to expect. And full disclosure, I don't get on Zoom calls very often, almost never. And so I didn't know that you could make the speaker the biggest one. And I do want to blur everybody else who was in this. So unfortunately, you're going to have to look at a very low resolution, Martin. But it started uncomfortably.
I want to drink, obviously, waters with you today. But before we are starting, I want that everybody's unmuting himself, because I have some questions for you. Because I don't want that we just like that I'm just talking. I want to have actually a conversation with you guys.
It started with that sort of new teacher in a classroom vibe where it's like, okay, and how many people know how many gallons of water there are in the world? Raise your hand. Anybody? 10 billion? No, not even close. So it went on like that for about 20 minutes, and I was worried that it was going to be a very uncomfortable event. But we finally got down to the tasting. The first water is Waiakea, which is, I believe, volcanic still water from Hawaii.
But this is sustainable sourced as well, Waiakea. I'm a strong believer of sustainable sourced waters. That means for me, they're just using the overflow of a spring source. They don't pull a spring dry, what is actually forbidden by law in Europe. You're not allowed to do that in Europe. What I think is the right thing to do.
This is actually a really good water to start with, I think, in retrospect, because it's like, yes, it just tastes like regular water and it's just kind of plain. But at least when you look at the bottle, it's like extremely well recycled plastic, and they've got like a zero net carbon, a bunch of sustainability stuff that I don't understand. And maybe some of it's a scam, but some of it's real. The water is sustainably sourced. So it's like, this is the baseline that you should sort of look for. Like, it's spring water. It's made by socially and ecologically conscious people. So when we do the tasting, all of the waters have to be at room temperature, because if you put ice in them, it'll sort of numb your mouth to a degree. You won't be able to taste the water as much. But also, your ice cubes are made out of completely different water. So the way he put it, you are watering your water down with water.
Okay, let's taste Waiakea. First water again, TDS around 82. And then I want to hear from you guys, actually, what you think how the taste of that water is. Cheers, my friends.
And we try it, and it's like, this is just water. The first one is just the most plain water We try to come up with adjectives like silky or smooth to describe it, but it's already off to a rough start because there was the awkward questioning, and now there's just like, all right, great, it's just water. More awkwardness as nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say, Martin, you're a kook. This is just water. We moved on to 3 Bays, which is an Australian water, very high TDS, absolutely revolting. As soon as you put it in your mouth, it's like getting, I don't know, an electrical shock, a mild electrical shock. It tastes like putting nickels in your mouth. I actually unmuted myself for the first time on this part and said it tastes like a mouthful of pocket change, because it did. It is so nasty.
So let's see what you think about this water. Cheers, my friends, to Down Under, to Australia.
And apparently when Martin was on that show, the Hulu show, and he gave it to Anna Kendrick, she tried 3 Bays and said, this is disgusting. I love it. Something along those lines. He told the story. And I don't think that there's anybody who would argue that water all tastes the same, right? Everybody already admits this when they're like, oh, I don't drink the Phoenix tap water. It's nasty. So it's not like this is a stretch. I think, and this is something that he mentioned a lot, is like Americans particularly are obsessed with the idea of purity in their water. So their idea of perfect water is just H2O. And he says that that's like kind of a very American take to have, whereas the Europeans might say like, oh, this water comes out of the ground sparkling. But we'll get to that. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Good water from a natural occurring spring source can have an impact, guys. And that's the reason I don't understand this whole concept of purified waters. Like to sell this to the consumer, that water needs to be pure and there should be no TDS in there. That's for me just the opposite of good. I want minerals. Your body wants minerals. You need minerals to survive, actually. Obviously, we get most of our minerals through food. That's the reason you need to have a good diet, because there are a lot of minerals and electrolytes actually dissolved in your food. But water can get you a lot of minerals as well. And Vichy is a very great example for that. And you should, I don't want to say no, try it out. I don't want that you're saying like, you should really get drunk tonight because tomorrow is Monday. Maybe you need to work, but you get my point. It's very interesting and fun that some waters can have an impact even on a bigger level than just hydration. And that is the fun part for me, that Mother Nature crafted all these amazing waters for you.
So we move on to the sparkling waters and start with Proud Source, and he has so much knowledge that it's just like, okay, Proud Source started here on the West Coast, but they have a vow that they never want to ship water more than 400 miles away, so this particular bottle is from the East Coast, and it's in this bottle, and just so you know, they're also the same exact supplier to Everyday 365 at Whole Foods, so if you ever go into a Whole Foods in Florida and see this bottle in Everyday 365, it's the same exact thing except 35 cents cheaper. It's like he has so much water knowledge. It's incredible.
It's exactly the same. When you have 365 in a plastic bottle, that is actually Crystal Geyser. It's the same water. It's Crystal Geyser. It's nothing. And again, it's like, it depends what you think it's more fancier for you, go with that, but it's exactly the same water. Crystal Geyser is 365 plastic bottled. When you look at the labels, and I'm always saying this, like, look at the labels, don't care for the brand, look at the labels where the water is coming from, you will see it. It says on Crystal Geyser, RXL Roxanne Spring. And when you see it, the 365 plastic version, it says exactly the same, RXL Roxanne Spring. It's the same water, guys. That's the water industry for you. So cheers to Proud Source, spring water from Florida.
Anyway, Proud Source he called his charming boy. He says, this one I always describe as my charming boy.
I'm always calling it, it's a charming boy. Like there's nothing to complain about.
We move on to Fararel, which that's actually a French accent. It's actually, I think, Italian. He says it's the most popular sparkling water in Italy, not Perrier. And the bubbles on that are so much smaller. It's like, I guess, champagne. It borders on foam. Like they're so small and so plentiful. And you start to see that like certain sparkling waters have like a soda quality to them with like big aggressive bubbles. Some of them have more of this foam that I'm talking about. Some of them are more like beer where it's kind of halfway. Really incredible stuff. I think somebody said something like, oh, I don't like this one. And he said like, oh yes, we are far from the charming boy now. And it's like he has so much personality to talk about water that it was very interesting. So I can't even act like I knew what to expect, but at least you can expect a water tasting from a viral celebrity water sommelier to be somewhat snobbish, this guy is not snobby at all. He's giving compliments to Liquid Death. He admits that they have some crazy marketing tactics, but he really likes the water. Like, he's not above it.
And a lot of people say like, Martin, really, Liquid Death, really? Like you can see it everywhere. What's the deal with that? And I understand like some people say, like, oh, I cannot see Liquid Death anymore because literally like they're doing such a intense, crazy job on social media that you see it like everywhere now. But the water, what they're using is actually very good water. So it comes from Austria. It's an Austrian mountain water with a TDS of 170. So that's actually a real water from nature. It's not just a marketing story, what they're building up. And their sparkling version is just perfect. Unbelievable good. It's just like a beer. That is for me crazy how well they did that. And they know this. I know the people behind Liquid Death as well. I met them many times. They are fun people. They're literally like that, what you would imagine of Liquid Death. They are actually like that.
And the fact that he doesn't say what's the best, like he'll never say what's his favorite water. He'll never say what's the best water. And it really brings light to the fact that, like, some people like stuff that other people find really yucky. And how lucky would I be if my favorite water was Phoenix tap water? It's not, but surely somebody out there just really loves the stuff. And it's a real love the one you're with type scenario. And I think understanding the breadth of opinions and tastes was one of the big takeaways here.
The flavor's very chalky or something.
Chalk.
Yeah, there's always a good amount of minerals dissolved. So yes, it's not a charming boy anymore. Clearly, there is characteristics to this water. And some people will say, it's not my thing anymore. Some people love it. My wife, for example, loves high TDS waters. She's addicted to the saltiness of waters. She loves that. It's the same with food. Some people love spicy food. Some people say, I cannot eat spice at all. It's all about personal preference.
And we close with Vichy Catalan, which is very high TDS, apparently borderline medicinal, sort of like Alka-Seltzer dissolved in water. He said that certain countries have medicinal labels on certain waters because at a certain level of TDS, there's so many solids in them that they do have certain properties that regular water would not have. And to me, it tastes delicious. He says that when he was on Conan spit it out and said, "You're giving me ocean water as a prank." And a lot of people were like, "This is disgusting." I loved it. But then, after all this was over, I went back, the next day, like, "Ooh, I want some more of that Vichy." Disgusting. Spit it out immediately. And it's like so much of this revolves around context. And if you've never read Alchemy by Rory Sutherland, great book for that sort of thing. It's like, you go on vacation, you get a nice bottle of rum that you love so much, you load up because you know you're never going to get it again. You get 10 bottles, 10 boxes even, take it home, and it's disgusting because the context around it is what matters. You feel like you're on vacation, you feel like it's something you can't get all the time. And I think this is the same thing. Like, I was building myself up to this high TDS water, and then when I just wake up in the morning and pour myself a glass, it's like, holy cow, this is intense. But he's got all sorts of use cases. He's like, okay, I drink high TDS water when I work out because I want to replenish my electrolytes with something other than Gatorade or salt water. I drink a liter of this before, or a half liter of this before bed if I've been drinking, so that it's sort of like the Alka-Seltzer effect, reducing your hangover the next day. Very smart guy. And when the whole thing is almost over, he says, all right, it's time for us to sort of like take a moment and talk about the privilege that we all have, because we all spent $75 on water for fun, and now it's time to talk about water conservation, people who don't have water, agriculture, I said water conservation already. This thing's going to have tons of jump cuts in it, I can already tell, because you know what? It's a Patreon bonus video, so I can put things all over the place. Look, now I'm over here, now I'm over there. Don't have to write a script. Editing will save me, hopefully. Anyway, I thought it was really nice to say, like, you think about like, oh, if I had Jeff Bezos in a room one of these days, I would tell him to pay his taxes. And it's like, this guy's doing that. He's got a bunch of people that are well off enough to buy water for fun shipped across the country. These are the people that you got to talk to about taking water seriously. And I thought that was awesome. Like I just love the guy.
Like I still see golf courses everywhere and they're all still super green. And no offense to people who love to golf, but when we're in a big drought right now here in California, do we really need to have, I don't know how many hundreds of golf courses right now operating? Sorry. That's just for me, like there's an off balance in that belief.
I've got to find a way to get him in touch with James Hoffman. I think they would do an excellent collaboration. Like, I bet James could taste some of these waters. Like, I would love to see him try to make coffee with 3 bays, that disgusting nickel flavored water. It would be incredible. Like, I don't know. This was the most exciting thing that's happened to me all month. Like, who would have thought that watching TikTok water sommelier would be so informative, inspiring, and fun? I would say go out and try it, but this just happened to be like a one-time thing. Like, first of all, he doesn't sell very many of those water tasting boxes, and second of all, it doesn't usually come with a Zoom virtual water tasting. It just so happened that the podcast made him so briefly popular that 300 people bought one of those boxes. But I will let Martin close it out. I hope to see more of him in the future. I'm very excited to see what he does as he gains even more popularity.
The main focus for me, like after our tasting today, hopefully when you're going home or when you're at home or when you're washing your teeth tonight, just be thankful that you're living in a country where you actually have clean and safe drinking water accessible on your tap. And we all know what happened in Flint, Michigan as well. Even here in this country, we could not provide that guarantee to everybody because water is a human right. I strongly believe this. I fight for this as a water sommelier. I'm not just a water sommelier, I'm a water advocate too. I want to bring attention to water. I want to bring voices to water. I want that we're starting to talk about water and rethink our use of water. That's the whole game.